pudding with poached rhubarb. Oh, yummy! I'm actually a really old-fashioned girl at heart. You may not believe me, but it's true. And it's those beautiful old-fashioned recipes of yesterday that my nan used to make that I truly love. So we've taken this classic and we've tweaked it right up into 2005 because this is a microwave version. And to my knowledge, that is a first. It's very, very simple to make and something that once you've got this into the repertoire, you'll be making it again and again and again. The recipe begins with the topping. Now, as you know, in the microwave, you don't get any colour in food, so I think it's really important to add a little bit of colour just so it looks like it has been baked in the oven. The coconut and the walnuts are very simply placed into the cover of the wonderful Tupperware stack cooker and popped into the microwave for about a minute. Let them have a little toast, give them a stir, and then pop them back in again. Now, with all microwaves, the power varies, so just keep your eye on them because the nuts can burn quite easily. Once that's toasted, set it to the side. Now, rhubarb. It's a beautiful old-fashioned vegetable. A lot of people think it's a fruit, but it's actually a veggie. Now, when you buy the rhubarb, it comes in a lovely big bunch, and it's normally around 600 grams for that bunch of rhubarb. Now, some of the stems may be thicker than the others, so all you need to do is to cut through the centre of the larger stem, and that's so they cook evenly in the microwave. Now, the vegetable itself, it's the stem that is edible, but let me tell you, the top or the green part, that's actually poisonous, so it's very important that you don't eat the green section of the rhubarb. Apart from anything, it tastes disgusting. So very simply, trim away that poisonous bit, get rid of that, and then cut the stem into nice even-sized pieces. And pop the rhubarb into the Tupperware 2.25 litre base of the stack cooker. Now, in with the rhubarb, we've got some sugar, a little bit of butter, a little bit of cinnamon, and of course, you do need some water, just like so. And that can sit to the side. Now, for the actual pudding. Now, with a delicious, if you've never had a lemon delicious, it's the most wonderful, luscious yet tart, tangy pudding. And it does this magical thing. The actual pudding itself forms a cake on the top and a beautiful sauce on the base. How it does that, I don't know. It just comes out in the wash. I guess you could say it's kind of like a self-saucing pudding in a way. You begin by separating the eggs and the yolks, and of course, use your little yolkster to do that because that's a terrific little tip. The whites go into the mix and pour, and we just give them a nice little beat up just until it soft peaks. Then they can sit to the side. Now, with your hand beaters, if you want to wash them, you can do that in warm soapy water if you like. But you know, if you just get most of that egg white off, it won't hurt anything when you're going to cream the butter and the sugar. It won't hurt it at all. So into the small Bake to Basics bowl. Now, this bowl is perfect for creaming. That's exactly what it's designed for. The beaters fit beautifully just into the little bowl, so you can cream butters and sugars, making icings. It's perfect. If I wanted to cream butter and sugar into the larger bowl, it would actually be a nightmare because I'd be chasing that mix all around the bowl. I'd end up splattering it everywhere. So the actual technique is to cream in the small and then transfer to the large. So in here we've creamed butter and sugar. Have your butter at room temperature, add the sugar, cream until it's light and fluffy. You then start adding the egg yolks. So one at a time creaming, two at a time creaming, and we're going to do the last one. So in with that last yolk, and you just cream it until it is well mixed. Now I need to get, and I'll just pop my beaters here, as much of that mix off as I can. I'll just give it a little tap on the side. Now, in the privacy of your own home, you can lick the beaters. Okay, but don't be doing that at your den. No, no, no. This mix now needs to go straight into the larger bowl. And, of course, with the fabulous spatula, that's a breeze too, like so. And And it's now a matter of folding all of that together. I'll pop this to the side. Now I must also add the lemon rind was also in with the butter and the sugar. And when you zest the rind, it's very important just to remember to work in a circular pattern, and that way you only get the outside and the lovely fragrance of all that outside rind or zest. You don't want the underneath white pith. So the rind was already in with the butter and the sugar. Now into this we start going with the remainder of the recipe. Some self-raising flour, which I'm sifting in, and alternatively I'm going to add the milk and the lemon juice. Now you have a choice now. You could either use the mixing spoon or you can use the spatula. It's completely up to you. So I might use both. I'll start with the spatula and I'll go to the mixing spoon. Now at this stage, when you add the milk and the lemon juice into the mixture, don't be concerned if it curdles, because chances are it will. And that doesn't matter. Trust me, it all comes out in the wash. So you just give that a nice little mix together. And once that's half mixed in, I'm going to start adding the rest of the egg white. Now a delicious is a funny sort of a pudding. It actually, before you pour it in to bake it or microwave it in this instance, it still looks a little bit lumpy and bumpy. And you know what? That doesn't matter either, because yet again, that all comes out in the wash. So I'm just mixing that together like so. Now, as I mentioned to you, and I think it says on the recipe card, this has curdled, but please don't be concerned about it. That is perfectly normal. And that's basically just the fact that this has a beautiful fresh lemon essence through it, and that fresh juice is actually just starting to break down that protein in the egg a bit, but it doesn't matter. It all comes into a smooth sauce. So now with the egg white, that simply is added straight in. You can do it in batches if you wish to. I'm just going to pop it in one go. But folding is something that's quite important. To fold is a technique of mixing. And the way that you fold, and I'll do it with the spatula and then with the mixing spoon, is you cut down through the mix and lift up and go over. Cut down through the mix and lift up and go over. If you were to get there and beat it, and I'm quite famous for talking about beating, you'll find that you'll actually squash all the air out of the pudding and it just won't have the texture that you want. So this is folded together. I suppose you would say at this stage it's looking a little bit like, probably scrambled egg, but don't worry, it's absolutely spectacular. The mixing spoon, again, just cut through and fold over. You can do that quickly if you want to, but it's more of an up and over, cut through, up and over. That's how you fold together. Back to the spatula. That smell of that fresh lemon is really quite gorgeous. Now, the rhubarb actually is going on into the base, so you can see that, with the 2.25 Tupperware. The pudding goes into the top, the 1.5 litre, like so. And those lumps and bumps, they will not be there when this pudding is cooked. Now, a normal lemon delicious would actually take around about 50 to 55 minutes in the oven, and that's quite a long cooking time. But I'm delighted to say that this one has a 20-minute cooking time, so it's fabulous. Now, the colour to the top of the pudding, you won't gain that in the microwave, so that's why we've added this little bit of coconut and walnut toasted mixture. It not only adds colour, it also adds a lovely texture just to the top. Now, if you'd like to, you could use shredded coconut if you're looking for another variation, but this is actually desiccated coconut, which is the fine grated coconut. This sits on like so. It then goes into the microwave for 20 minutes, which is fantastic for a delicious pudding, and it's cooked uncovered. Please don't cook the pudding covered because it would literally boil and stew while it's cooking. So cook it uncovered. At the end of the cooking time, it does need to stand, and that's something that's very important for all microwave food. So you take the cover, place it on and set it to the side for 5 minutes. In that last 5 minutes of standing, the pudding is just becoming beautifully smooth underneath. The rhubarb is finishing its cooking and it's just sitting there staying nice and warm for you. And over here we have one. Beautiful pudding on the top, gorgeous poached rhubarb underneath. Now to serve, it's simply take a lovely big spoonful of the gorgeous lemon delicious pudding, place it into your favourite serving dish, top with some poached rhubarb, maybe a little dollop of cream and some extra cinnamon, and it's delicious. Enjoy. Pancakes, pikelets, blinis, anyone? The most delicious, really, really simple recipe. Fabulous to have on hand for cocktail parties, picnics, or just something delicious to eat. The recipe begins with a really, really simple batter. But hey, before I start cooking, don't forget about hygiene. It's really, really important for all of us demonstrators to think about our hands, cooktop, our clothes. Make sure everything is sparkling clean. Now the batter begins very simply with some milk, an egg, and a little secret ingredient, sour cream. The sour cream is there because it gives a beautiful lacy texture to your blini. It gives it a wonderful lace-like look on the bottom, just having that little bit of extra fat. Pop them into a quick shake and thoroughly shake to combine. Some flour, self-raising of course, because you need lots of raising. We sift that into the Bake to Basics bowl. Now, very simply, it's a really, really easy thing to make a batter, and it sounds simple when someone says combine all the ingredients, pop them into a bowl and stir. But unless it's done the right way, you will get the worst lumps. So we're going to add, before we begin, a little bit of corn into the flour. We can top in like so, and of course a few herbs. And they're just a few little flavourings that I like to add. Now for the batter, you've got some choices. I love the spatula, but there again you might like to use the soft grip whisk. It's really up to you. But the secret to a good batter is to make a hole in the centre, pouring in your liquid ingredients, and as you stir the batter around, and I think I might use the spatula actually, you stir very, very slowly in the beginning, going around and around and around. And each time that you go around, you're just taking a little bit more flour into the liquid mix. Now that will ensure that you do have a lovely smooth batter. If you throw it all in and just start whipping, whisking, mixing, you will get lumps. That's precisely that you don't want. Now into that there's also a little bit of lemon rind, and that just offsets the flavour of the chives beautifully. Now the batter itself, a little tip for you. I found the simplest way to put the batter into the pan to form those beautiful little blinis is to tip it back into the quick shake. Fabulous. You can give it another little shake when you need it, and it means the pouring is always perfect and very simple. It also stops all those drips. Now for the fry pan, and what a fry pan. Now the nightmare when it comes to making pikelets or pancakes or blinis or crepes is the fact that they burn so easily. They don't cook evenly, and quite often the mixture will just stick. So what a perfect recipe to show you with these sensational Chef Series fry pan. Now I love it. It heats to a beautiful, consistent, solid heat, and that in a fry pan is terribly important. Fry pans can classically have shocking hot spots. You'll find that they're very hot over here, very cold here. They can have uneven bases, and what that basically means is cooking is a nightmare. So this is a perfect recipe to show you how simple it is to use. Now when it comes to the heat, you'll notice that I just turned down the heat on the cooktop here. My hand keeps going over the top of the fry pan. Now that's my main gauge of telling when the fry pan is at the right heat. If it's too hot for my hand to go over, it's too hot, and if I can hold my hand there for a long amount of time, it's too cold. I know it's pretty basic, but that's the easiest way that I can gauge. You will get a very slight haze over the top of the pan that only really the person cooking can see. It's not smoking, all right? It's not giving off great wafts of any sort of smoke or air. It's just a heat movement. Now when it comes to oil in the pan, because of the very good quality non-stick coating, you don't need it. The only reason you have oil when it comes to pikelets or pancakes is basically for flavour. So just for the sake of keeping everybody happy, I'm just going to have a little bit of a drizzle in the base of the pan, rub that oil around with a touch of paper towel, and that just makes sure that it's even. And I've also got a little bit of more hazing and smoking going on. That's good. Open up the quick shake, and then I'm going to pour in the tiniest little amount of batter, just enough to make about a 4 centimetre round. Don't have them too close together because you don't want them spreading. And a little bit of patience is needed at this time. I can probably fit 4, maybe 5 into the pan. Four is perfect. Now leave the little blinis there, and it's the same technique as when you were little kids and we all made our pikelets. What you're looking for are a few air bubbles that actually start to rise to the top of the pancake. There won't be any bubbling in the pan, there won't be anything that'll happen except that they'll start to set on the outside. You'll get a couple of little air bubbles and it's time to turn them over. Now with the soft grip lifter, it's simple. I'm just going to have a little look. Ah, that's lovely. Flip that one over, and the next. They really only take about a minute or so each side. Oh, can I do a left-handed one? Yes, I can. Flip them over, cook for about another minute until they're just done. You don't want to overcook them, and you'll also find that if you're getting, again, too much hazing or too much, you think the pan's getting too hot, turn it down. For the second batch, it's very simple. Take a plate to pop them into. I'm putting them into the Illusions platter here. Remove them from the pan and you repeat. But the nicest thing about blinis, pikelets or pancakes is that they will keep beautifully for you in a sealed Tupperware container. Now to serve. Traditionally, blinis are always served with a touch of cream cheese or sour cream, some beautiful smoked salmon and some chives. So with the cream cheese, I've decided that we should actually mix that with a little bit of sour cream. Just give that a little light mix together, and those two flavours together are lovely. Sour cream can sometimes be too light, cream cheese can be too thick, so why not put the two together? Now with smoked salmon, you'll find it at all supermarkets in the chilled section, and it really is up to you how you want to serve it. I've got a couple of little packets here from the supermarket. You might like to use fresh smoked salmon slices. You might like to use smoked trout. You can buy lovely salmon slices in the can. You might like to use tuna slices, and you'll also find you've got a choice of having them in oil or in spring water. It's completely up to you. But most people will just adore the good old smoked salmon. So to serve, it couldn't be simpler. Take a little blini, take a little dollop of the cream cheese, or a big dollop if you want, of the cream cheese sour cream mixture. Place that on top. A little bit of the smoked salmon. Take the smoked salmon when you're ready to serve, and you might like to just tear off a little strip, roll it like so in your fingertips, and then simply place it onto your little blini. Remember hygiene when you do touch the food with your hands, and please remember to never ever pop anything into your mouth. Not good. Nice and clean. The cream cheese on top, I'm going to top that with some chives. That will just not only add colour but also a little bit of extra flavour, a little bit of black pepper. And for the most delicious cocktail food, maybe afternoon tea or maybe just a fun picnic, blinis. You'll love them. Now that's Rocky Road, and it's a delicious all-time favourite. Now I know there are 101 different recipes out there, but this one, it's top shelf stuff. Now Rocky Road needs to resemble a cobbled road, and it must be a combination of chocolate, marshmallows and nuts. But we've got a couple of little extra touches in here that really do make it absolutely sensational to eat. The mix begins with some chocolate. Now there's chocolate and there's chocolate. And the best thing to do, I think, when you're making a chocolate-based slice is combine different chocolates. Start with some cooking chocolate. And the reason the cooking chocolate is needed is that helps the whole thing set for you. But for flavour, lusciousness and that real chocolatey texture, pop in some eating chocolate. Now there are many different styles, many different sorts available, but you actually just need a little bit of that to combine the flavours. So into the 1 litre jug, we've got a lovely combination of cooking chocolate, eating chocolate, a little bit of butter, that's for richness, and a touch of vegetable shortening. Now I'm not the greatest fan of Kofa or Cremelda, I believe it's called in New Zealand, but it really will ensure that this beautiful chocolate mixture is glossy smooth and also sets very, very quickly. So place them all into the jug. Now that goes into the microwave on 650 watts, which is just above about medium power, for about 3 minutes. And don't cover when you cook this mix in the microwave, because if you cover, it can seize. So uncovered. When the mix comes out of the micro, it may not be necessarily smooth. So you just need to give it a little gentle stir and it'll all come together beautifully. Now for a little touch of extreme richness, a big secret, a little bit of cocoa. And you just need about a tablespoon. So sift that in and stir till combined. And that actually changes the pH of the chocolate and it makes it incredibly chocolatey. So give that a good stir until it's lovely and smooth. It smells absolutely glorious. Now the actual Rocky Road mixture itself, very simply, marshmallows. You know you need those. You might like to use pink, you might like to use white, you might like to use a combination of the two. And for a little bit of extra fun, here's some large marshmallows or some little babies. It really is up to you, whichever sorts you want to use. If the larger marshmallows are the only ones available, take the scissors and just snip them into smaller size pieces. Scissors is the best way to do that. Very simple. Now in here, the marshmallow, there's some shredded coconut for lots of texture, some pecans, I just like them to add lots of crunch, and some sultanas and 3/4 of the chopped nuts. You need to keep just a few nuts to go over the top. Now give that a little light mix together. Now it is full of all sorts of gorgeous things, but I think it's sad that over the last few years, Rocky Road really to some has just become lots of chocolate with 1 or 2 marshmallows, and that's not what it is. It should be chock-a-block full of all sorts of lovely things. Now the chocolate, straight into that mixture and then fold together. Now at this stage, I must mention, it is very difficult for me not to lick the spatula, but please don't ever do that. It's an absolute no-no. And when you are demonstrating, if you do get a little bit of chocolate on your fingertips, which I have, that's absolutely okay. We're all human, but wash your hands. It's really important that we remember all those specific hygiene rules when cooking in front of the general public. I have to do it, you have to do it. So as much as you might like to lick the finger, don't do it. Mix that until it's just combined. And then the most exciting part of all, I'm going to press that into the new slice form. It needs no preparation whatsoever, no greasing, no lining, just the mixture. So there we are, like so. I'll flood this in, press it down, smoothing it out to the sides. And dependent on, different temperatures, if you have heating on, because the weather is getting a little bit cooler, in some circumstances, this can basically be setting as quickly as you're popping it into the slice form. Or you may need to pop it into the fridge. So press it out to the sides. I like to put a few extra nuts on top, like so. Into the fridge, and before we know it, I have one here ready to go. Now it couldn't be simpler. All I need to do is to invert this. Now we might lose a couple of nuts there, but that's okay. We can also always pop them back on top. Now, I must say, the chocolate might just stick in a few little places, but it doesn't stick to stay. You just get a little bit left on the base of the form. I don't think anyone's going to worry about that. It comes out beautifully. Holding its shape, I'm going to turn that back over. So all you need to do is to cut into glorious big chunks, or if you want, you can actually just break the Rocky Road up into whatever serving size pieces you like to eat. And trust me, follow this Rocky Road to absolute heaven. Enjoy. Oh, yes, please. I am so excited that there is now a magnificent coffee plunger. Thank you, Tupperware. And it is truly the best plunger that I've ever used. And there are some really important reasons as to why I would say that to you. Now, when you're talking coffee, everyone will have absolute favourite brands, favourite styles, favourite flavourings. They're all very, very different. But what it comes down to is basically making a fabulous cup of coffee. Now, coffee begins as coffee beans. You all know that. And they have the most wonderful, full roasted aroma. And there are different styles of beans yet again. But at the end of the day, the most important thing with coffee is that you purchase the smallest amount possible. It needs to be super fresh. So if you're not going to drink large amounts of coffee, and that's not in my house, you'll only need to buy the smallest amount possible. Now, coffee beans and freshly ground coffee are available at the supermarket, and I've got a couple of different brands here. Again, different brands, different favourites, different styles, but they're all in Tetra Pak. And what that actually means is that that coffee is vacuum packed, the freshness is inside, the flavour's inside. Once you open the pack, the coffee needs to go straight into a modular, and of course it must be sealed as much as possible to keep that freshness in. Now, some coffee enthusiasts would say that you never store coffee in the fridge. Some would say that you never ever store it just in the pantry. The main thing is that it's in a cool spot, because what coffee doesn't like is heat. It doesn't like heating. It doesn't like to be sitting on a windowsill. It doesn't like fresh light. It likes to be cool and dark. It's a bit like a mushroom, really. That's what it likes. Keep it in the pantry, in the modular. If your heating's very hot during winter or in the middle of summer as we go on through the seasons, maybe you would like to keep your coffee in the coolest part of the fridge. That you'll find out yourself. Mine is actually in the bottom of the pantry. Now, when it comes to making the coffee, what you need is boiling water. So on goes the kettle. And as for the preparation of the plunger, very, very little needed. Keep it as clean as possible. And that might sound like a very silly thing to say, but if you leave odd bits of coffee in the base of the actual plunger or maybe on the filter, obviously they're going to turn a little bit rancid and the flavour will not be good. What happens with coffee as it gets old is that it gets bitter. Until it's the extent that it is nearly unpalatable. And I'm sure you know that when you've actually, in the old days of the drippolators, we used to make coffee, it'd sit there and brew for hours, and you'd come back a few hours later, have a cup of coffee. Oh, ghastly. So coffee needs to be fresh and made, as close as possible as you want to enjoy it. So nice and clean. Now, the kettle is actually boiled and it's turned off. And it's really important that you actually let the water sit just for a couple of minutes. Boiling hot water straight away, straight onto the coffee actually bruises. And what actually happens is, it will taste bitter. So you need the coffee to come off the boil. And that might sound like a very funny thing to say. It's still steaming, it's still very hot, but it's not boiling vigorously. So let it come off the boil. Now, with the coffee itself, within the wonderful plunger, you actually also have a measure, which is fantastic because that's going to guide you to specifically how much coffee you need. And the rule of thumb is 1 tablespoon per 250 mils or 1 cup, 1 Australian or New Zealand metric cup of water. Now, in saying that it's 1 tablespoon per 1 cup, you might like 2 tablespoons per 1 cup, or if you're a thorough coffee drinker and you like gutsier flavours, you might like 3 tablespoons per 1 cup. Now, that's not too strong for a lot of people. It just depends how you like to drink your coffee. Now, the coffee, once the water's boiled, if you wish to, you could pour a little bit of hot water into the jug, and you could actually give it a little twirl around just to warm the plunger and then tip that water out. And for the avid tea drinkers, you know how you warm the pot? It's that kind of thing. But if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Now, with water, if you're a purist or if you live in some areas where you're a bit worried about the quality of the water, you might like to use filtered water. And that way you won't get chlorine flavouring the coffee, because we are after the best possible cup of coffee. So, to measure the coffee, very simply, into the little scoop, and then I'll just flatten it straight into the base of the jug. Now, the specific, and actually I might make just on the 1.5 cup here. The specifics about the jug that are terribly important. It's double insulated, and that is fantastic. Not only does it mean the coffee will stay warmer, it also means you're less likely to break the jug. That's music to my ears. I have broken so many plungers over the years that this is just fantastic. The coffee's in, the water's going in, and very simply pour in like so. And I want about 1.5 cups, and that's looking like just on maybe 1 3/4 there, but that's okay. And you need to, of course, sit your filter on top. Now, there are some really, really fantastic things about the design of this wonderful plunger. The most important is the quality. Now, in inferior or very ordinary plungers, there's this very annoying little screw that sits in the base here of the filter, and it connects the whole thing together. Now, over time, you'll find that that screw actually starts to wear around and eventually fall off, and the whole thing falls apart. So I'm very pleased to say Tupperware has not gone that road, and this is a solid unit, and that is fantastic because it won't fall apart. The filter is of the most wonderful firm quality, very firm. The filters over time tend to get very, very soft and very pliable, not good. Fabulous quality. And lastly, it has a great curved edge, and it also has an additional round of metal around the outside curving that edge, and that ensures that the actual filter sits right on the side of the actual jug itself, and that means no flyaway coffee beans or grounds of coffee come up the side. So what you're actually looking for is perfect plunging. So in saying all that, you also have this wonderful disc on top, the floating disc, and that's actually going to keep the coffee as hot as possible, which is another fabulous achievement with the pot. So placing the plunger on top. Now, normally speaking, you would actually be doing all this chat during your dem once you've actually sat the actual plunger on top of the pot. You need to sit it there and you need to let it wait or seep. Now, with a cup of tea, the rule of thumb with a cup of tea is, believe it or not, that you allow the pot to sit for 4 to 6 minutes before you make your cup of tea. So with coffee, it is again, it's at least, if you can't do 2 or 3 or 4, try and do as long as you can. The coffee, obviously, at this time, it's fulling and it's bursting, and the water is actually mincing through the coffee bean and all the flavours coming. If you make coffee too soon and plunge it too soon, it has no body, it's far, far, far too thin, it has no great flavour, and also what you don't get is the creme. And in a few minutes' time, I'm going to show you how important that is. Now, a coffee expert is called a barista, and I don't claim to be a barista. However, I have done some beautiful coffee courses, but it is actually a very fine art in making a beautiful cup of coffee. And with the plunger, it's getting easier. You need your water off the boil. You need to measure your coffee into the base, add the water, allow it to sit, and then when you're ready, you plunge. Now, it's for all of us, it's very annoying. We're terribly impatient people, and we all tend to get there with the plunger, and we all want to go and do it extremely quickly. The faster you actually plunge that coffee, the lack of body your coffee will have. So for that reason, there is actually a little bit of force against the ability that I want to actually plunge this, and that is actually pressing against my hand. And so very slowly and patiently I'm pressing the coffee down, and it is firm, it should be, that's good. And what we're getting is a beautiful, beautiful coffee, which you'll see is wonderful dark clarity underneath and a magnificent foam or creme or crema sitting on top, and that's really important. Once you're ready to enjoy the coffee, I could have this now, or I could have it in 5 or 10 minutes. Because of the double insulating, it's going to stay beautifully warm for me. So I'm going to enjoy a cup of coffee. Maybe you'd like to do so as well. Enjoy your coffee with or without milk, with or without sugar, but what's the most important thing to know? The flavour's there, the intensity's there. It's a great cup of coffee. So, excuse me, I'm going to enjoy. Ah, the aroma's beautiful. Remember those beautiful Liqueur coffees of the 60s? Well, they're back, and we're making them bigger and better and even more delicious. Now, this just isn't a Liqueur coffee. It can be an afternoon tea drink, it can finish a meal, it can even be a dessert, it can be a midnight snack, it can be whatever you want it to be. It's very luscious and very gorgeous because it's a combination of beautiful coffee and some chocolate and some liqueur and some cream. Oh, how good does it get? You're going to love it. The recipe begins with good coffee, and I know that you've seen the coffee segment. Please refer to that because I'm only going to touch on bits and pieces. To make good coffee, you start with the best plunger there is. You need boiled water, and if possible, make sure the water is filtered. Boil the water and then let it come off the boil. Place the coffee into the bottom of the plunger, pour in the water, and then let it sit for at least 4 minutes to infuse. Plunge when you're ready to serve. So that's the beginning. Now, because the plunger is double insulated, you can make the coffee 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes before you want to enjoy your liqueur coffee, which is fantastic. So the coffee's sitting waiting. Now, for the liqueur coffee, we'll actually work backwards. It ends with some cream, and the best way to actually do the cream, the easiest way to do it, is to pop it into the quick shake it up until it's the consistency that you want, and then set it to the side. So that's over like so. Now the coffee itself, I thought it might be nice to add a little bit of chocolate. I know how much you like that. So it's optional. And the best chocolate to use, simply because it will melt very, very easily, is cooking chocolate. And these are some little cooking chocolate rounds. I know you're familiar with them. It's straight into the bottom of the tumbler. If you don't like chocolate, leave it out. Now, for those of you that do like a little bit of extra sweetness, the sugar is also optional, and I might add that even the milk is optional. It's completely up to you on whatever you want to do. But what is important is the coffee and the liqueur. That's it. You must have those. So I've added a little bit of chocolate, now a little bit of liqueur. Choices. Maybe you love Cointreau, maybe you love Irish cream, maybe you love Frangelico. I wouldn't recommend all three. Never get up again. But a little bit of something's a nice thing, and it's up to you how much you want to use. But as a general thing, per glass, you really only want a couple of teaspoons, I think. Take it easy. With liqueur, you can either buy the little baby bottles or the larger bottle, and they're available in all liquor stores, whichever you find is more appropriate for you. So I might choose the Irish cream, I think, and I'm going to place a little bit, like so, onto the chocolate. Now, for the coffee, when you're ready to plunge, it is quite a slow, patient plunging. Please be aware that Tupperware have specifically designed the plunger so it does the best it can for your coffee. And the slower that you actually plunge that coffee, and it won't allow you to do it fast because there's resistance against my hand, is the more intense the flavour and the better quality that coffee will be. So basically, you can't get there and go, all right, because you just won't get good quality coffee at all. We simply need to add hot coffee to the tumbler. It smells beautiful. And if you are enjoying some milk, you might like to give it a nice little gentle heat in the 1 litre jug. You won't need a lot, just a tad. And don't overheat the milk. I think that's really important. Just until it's lightly heated. Into that some sugar. I think I will enjoy a teaspoon. And really, it doesn't matter what sort of sugar you want to enjoy. And last but not least, dollop with the lightly whipped cream. And that again is an indulgence that I insist upon, but you might want to have it. So a little cream dolloped on top. Now, to finish the liqueur coffee, you might like to grate some chocolate. You might like to sift over some cocoa. You might like a little bit of cinnamon. It really is up to you. Now, when you're demonstrating, I know it's hard. Thou shalt not lick your finger, all right? You must wipe. So if you do use your hands while you are demming, that's perfectly okay to do that. Just be nice and clean. Give them a little wipe. A little bit of cocoa over the top. I don't know whether I need a straw or a spoon. I can't decide. So liqueur coffee, anyone? Please enjoy. Society, this is it. Can I interest you in an affogato? Now, I've practiced that and my Italian is dismal, but what it basically is gorgeous coffee on good ice cream with a dash of liqueur. It's simple, it's sexy, and it's really, really easy. We're also serving it with a beautiful praline, which is a toffee with some nuts, some roasted almonds put through it. You're going to love it. It can be an afternoon tea, it can be a dessert, it can be a supper, it can be anything you want it to be. The recipe, of course, is about good coffee, and that's the most important thing. So when we get later on down through the recipe, I'll talk to you and chat you through about how to make a great coffee. But it starts with the frying pan. And this is the Chef Series frying pan. Now when it comes to pans, this one is the bee's knees. It can do it all for you. And one of the greatest tests of using a good fry pan is to make a toffee and to toast nuts. So this recipe begins with that. In the pan, we've lightly toasted some almonds until they're just golden. They've got a beautiful, beautiful fragrance, and they go straight out of the pan onto the baking sheet. Straight like so. Now, the pan's hot, so using the spatula, wonderful heat resistance, absolutely fabulous. Clean that pan as good as you can, really, but if you'd like to take a little bit of paper towel and just make sure that you have removed a lot of that almond oil, because that oil will actually, or can, cause the toffee to start to crystallize. Now, I don't want to scare you when it comes to toffee, because I've taken all the pain out of making toffee. I've tried many, many ways to make this as simple as possible, and the golden secret is a clean pan on the heat. Raw sugar is so important. If you use either a caster sugar or a white sugar, you may find that the toffee will burn before it's ready to make toffee. And I'll explain that a little bit more as I go on. So if you use raw sugar, you won't have any dramas whatsoever. And raw sugar, of course, it's in all supermarkets. So raw sugar goes straight into the pan. So I'm going to scatter it in. Now, the funny thing about, making toffee, I like to say that a watch pot never boils. You can sort of stand here and stare at it, and it does precisely nothing. But as quick as a flash, it becomes toffee. So please don't wander off and go and talk to someone, or if the phone does ring, don't answer it. And I would definitely recommend that you do practice this at least once at home. It's not difficult. It's just something that you need to feel confident with. So looking at the pan now, it's doing precisely nothing. And but no, as I say, there are a few little bits that are just starting to melt. And it is one of those things. It does nothing, and then it's toffee. Now, if you want to, you can pick the pan up and you can give it a bit of a shake if that makes you feel good at this stage. But what you mustn't do at all is you mustn't touch the toffee with a spoon, a spatula, or anything. You must not stir it. If you stir it, it will crystallize and just become a big funny lump. All right, no toffee, over, finished. So don't touch it, basically. And also the other thing about toffee, it's incredibly hot. So definitely do not touch it with your fingertips, with your hands, or anything else. So very, very slowly, the toffee is melting. And I can swirl it around once it starts to liquefy. But basically, it's just a little 2 to 3 minute waiting game. Now, as the sugar starts to melt down, by all means, you can pick up the pan and you can give it a little swirl. And that just will create the toffee to form very, very evenly. Now, a little word about this toffee. You might think, gee, that's looking really dark, Jo. It's beautiful, and it's very, very, very slightly bitter, but in a nice way, not in a yucky way. And that bitterness complements the coffee and the liqueur magnificently. If it was just a sweet toffee, you'd have sweet toffee, sweet liqueur, not good. It's not a lovely balance. So this is a really grown-up way to enjoy a praline. And a praline is, of course, a toffee with nuts set through. Now, that's nearly ready now. There's just a couple of little granules of sugar which are being stubborn, I think is the best word to use. Don't be tempted to put the spatula in. Don't be tempted to stir. Just very, very simply keep swirling until our toffee's done. I'm going to turn the heat off, pick up the pan and pour it straight over the top of the almonds, just drizzling back and forth, and trying to coat them kind of as evenly as I can. Now, there will be some toffee left in the bottom of the pan. You can't touch it with your fingertip, whatever you do, but you can, using the fabulous spatula, scrape out the remaining. Now, I can't tell you what a test that is for the spatula, and it handles it magnificently. Scrape out the last of the toffee. Now, to clean the remaining toffee from the pan, you place it back on the stove, pour in some hot water or some cold if you like. It will sizzle and foam a little bit, but don't worry about that. Pop it back on the heat and just slowly stir, and all that toffee will melt into the water, completely dissolve, and you can then just clean as normal. So that's the simplest way to clean the pan. When you're making the praline, please remember to drizzle the toffee over as thinly as possible. It really should just be a very thin layer. So when we break this or shard it, which is the correct pronunciational term, you'll just get a crisp layer of praline. It shouldn't be thick, clumpy pieces. Now after 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the heat, the heating, a humid day, whatever's happening, that will actually determine how long this takes to completely set. So we've already made one. Now one side is quite heavily coated in toffee, but underneath lots and lots of lovely almonds, and you can have fun here. Just break it into pieces, into larger shards, whichever way that you would like to enjoy the praline. Now technically speaking, a praline is normally finely ground and scattered over the top of ice creams and desserts, but it's absolutely beautiful eaten in shards like this, and it's very, very pretty. Now for the coffee. Very simply, when you select your coffee, ground coffee from the supermarket, you might like to select a brand that you're familiar with. There are lots and lots of favourites out there, but they're in Tetra packs. They're in the smallest size possible that you're going to use, and always, always store the coffee in a modular, in a cool place. Coffee needs to be at the correct grind, I think I should say, to allow it to immerse and be filtered in the plunger. If the coffee is ground too coarsely, you'll find it's really, really weak. If it's ground too finely, it's very, very bitter. So when you purchase the coffee ready ground, what you want is coffee suitable for a plunger, and it's at the most perfect consistency. Supplied with the plunger, you'll find there's a measuring spoon, and the rule of thumb is 1 tablespoon of coffee to 250 mils or 1 cup of water, but you might like to make that 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. It's really up to you how strong you would like it. Boil your kettle, allow the water to come to the boil, and then let it sit only for about 10 seconds. Pour it into the plunger, sit your filter on top, wait for at least 4 minutes, and in that time the coffee is just brewing, it's seeping is the correct term, and all the flavours coming out of the coffee. Don't rush that process. When you're ready to serve, here we go. Now an affogato is actually, it's the term means to drown, and what actually happens is you're drowning the ice cream with the coffee. So probably doesn't sound too good, but oh boy, it tastes good. So when you're ready to serve, I've chosen we're going to use Frangelico. I'm going to place some vanilla ice cream, 2 balls I think would be nice, 2 little scoops into the tumbler. Top that with, you can measure by hand, you could use the quick shake or a little measuring jigger. Liqueur over the top. Frangelico is a wonderful hazelnut liqueur, by the way, and as we're ready, some hot coffee over the top. Instantly, that beautiful ice cream starts to melt. It forms a wonderful white foam over the top. You can drink this. You could use a straw. You could use a spoon. But whatever you do, just enjoy it. It's
When I'm transporting my Chef Series range, I like to take them to my parties in their box because it helps protect them, and it's also great for presentation purposes. Because they are such a highly priced item, it looks great to have them in the box, and you can use it as a prop and put a lovely bow on it to make it look good as well. It's important to tell a story when you're setting up your display, especially when you're using the Chef Series. Some people may not be able to afford the Chef Series, so it's great to have the other Tupperware pieces there with it. So, for example, if you were using the fry pan, then you would use maybe your fridge smarts for the chives if you're doing the blinis, bit of smoked salmon in the Clear Mates, you could have the quick shake there as well, and all the other products that you would be using to make that recipe to highlight that item. What have you got coming today, Tim?
I've got 5 girlfriends coming over today.
Oh, great. That's excellent. And thank you very much for helping me set up so far. Now, the only thing we need now are the chives. Have you got those handy? Yep. I love it when the new recipes come out, and so do my family, because it's a great opportunity for me to try the new recipes, and they get to sample them as well. They're always fantastic. So I thought of you as soon as they came out.
I know I love salmon.
I know, and that's what made me think of you. It's a great opportunity to update your customers when new recipes come out, because you might have someone who loves chocolate, so if something comes out with chocolate in it, then you can phone them up and say, I've got one of your favourite recipes again, and so you can easily date a party with them. Also, if products become available, so with the Illusions bowl, for example, when that came out, with the punch, then you can get back to your Illusions customers and update them with the new recipes as well. Now, have you got any of these?
No, I don't. I'd love to get some.
They're fantastic. You'll probably be able to get some today. And it's important that you go through your kit and make sure that you've got the right Tupperware to complement that particular recipe. Party planning is essential, especially if you're cooking with the stove or the stove top. The worst thing that could happen would be to turn up to use those items and the host is already using them to cook dinner or using the stovetop. The other thing, she'd be horrified to know that you're just going to rock up and use her oven if it's really dirty, so you'd like to talk to her about that and make sure it's all nice and clean. Also, that the kitchen is suitable to hold a demonstration. If it's a small enclosed kitchen, it might not be suitable to do that particular recipe.
Yeah, I never knew Tupperware made fry pans.
Well, they're only fairly new, but the non-stick lining is fabulous for cooking this type of thing.
Yeah, they look lovely. When can I have one?
Today. When I'm demonstrating the chef series, particularly if I'm doing a more difficult recipe and it involves cooking and having my back towards the people, I'll quite often prepare a lot of the Blinis, for example, beforehand, and then we'll just finish off with 4 or 5 at the end so that they get to see everything in action. Okay, now while you're doing that, I have actually made some of the blinis earlier today. And don't they look fantastic? Yeah. This is what they look like on the recipe card, so that's what they'll end up looking like. I've left a bit of the batter, so we're going to actually cook some in the pan, so you'll get to see that in action. But what I'd like to do first of all is show you the products that I used to make them and how to make them, because if you want to take this recipe home and have a go at home, you need to know how we did it, okay? So the first thing that I did was sift some flour. When I've prepared some of the recipe earlier, I like to have all my Tupperware set up on the display, everything that I've used, so the customers can see exactly what I've been using. They also can still be involved. They can do some sifting, so sift flour back into the modular mate. They can snip some chives and that type of thing. So they still get to see all the products in action. Make a little well in the centre, pop your wet ingredients in, and then you start on the inside and slowly work your way out so that you've got all the dry ingredients mixed in. Okay, and this bowl's just perfect for doing this. This is our Bake to Basics mixing bowl, and it's great to demonstrate as many products as you can when you're doing your cooking demonstration. It saves a lot of time, it gets the people to see everything in action, so it's a great selling point. And then I normally demonstrate my host gift and thank you gift at the end, so I'd have those set up together, and then obviously you would run through the Today brochure and cover all the specials for that month. Would you like to do some zesting for me?
Sure.
Okay, so what we've got here is the Citrus Wonder. What I'd like you to do is just in a circular motion, it's probably best if you hold this by the little handle, just in a circular motion like that. These are great for storing your deli items in the fridge as well, and they've got a special type of seal so they are liquid tight. Would anyone else like to have a go with the scissors? You're quite welcome.
Really nice.
Or the zester, please feel free, that's what we're here for. And it's just a matter of, I might use the chives, and we'll just, all you need to do is give that a twist like that. So we've got coarse grinding in there. Would you like to have a go with that? If you do a lot of cooking,
idea.
or if you like a lot of pepper and salt, you can actually put your peppercorns and your salt in together. Yeah, one of our saucepans, aren't they beautiful? It's vital that you have very good product knowledge about the chef series, because it's very difficult to sell something if you don't know what you're talking about. So it's really important that you read up and go to your unit meetings and your sales meetings and get as much information as you can. Okay, Tim, this is what we've want to end up with, something like this.
Just a little dollop.
Yeah, and we were very clever because we've already done our garnish and we've got our pepper on our chives already, but we can pop a little bit of salt on at the end. So
Put some salmon on.
that sounds great.
Lovely consistency.
What a team we are.
Okay. Great. Is it time for the chives?
Yep, would you like to pop
Yeah,
around here?
sure.
Might make it a little bit easier.
These are good.
Beautiful. Oh, you've done that before, haven't you?
Me? Yes, I'm a great chef.
You are. You'd all make perfect Tupperware
Just
demonstrators.
slide there.
The recipe cards are a great dating tool. I always have them on my display whether I'm doing a cooking demonstration or not. It's always important that you stress that they are a collectible and that people do need to go to the demonstrations to collect them. So what I like to do is talk to the customers and find out what they like. And did you see the coffee recipes?
I did. There's an affogato in there that
There
looks really
is.
good.
Well done.
Yeah.
Clever girl for being able to pronounce that. I would love to come and do this at your place and be able to show everybody just how it works. Sometimes if you're doing a chocolate demo, you might find that they're all chocoholics, so it's great to be able to offer them something else. Or then maybe they might like to go with something different like cocktails or some of the other fabulous recipes that we have.
Do these cards, can you get heaps of these cards? Or?
Yeah, they're collectible, so if you keep having lots of parties, you can end up with the whole set, so it's great. Yeah.
And they're easy to make, aren't they?
Oh, very easy, yep. What about anyone else see something in
I'd
here
like
that you
to come to your party.
Sometimes at your demonstrations you may get people who are concerned with the cost of the higher priced items, but we want to reiterate the value, and that's where your product knowledge really comes into play. So it's very important that you have the products at home, like the coffee plunger and the cookware, get to use them and love them, and you'll be sure to sell them. Okay, let me show you that coffee plunger that you were asking about earlier. There you go.
Have a look?
You certainly can.
And how much is this?
You don't need to know how much it is, Olga.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because by the time I tell you all the features and benefits, which I'm about to, you won't care how much it is.
Oh, really? Is it that good?
It is that good.
Wow.
Now that we have the new coffee recipes, it's a fantastic opportunity to go back and update your customers. So go back through your records and look up all the people who may have purchased it or achieved it through a host gift or showed interest in it. It's a great time to do that. Did you guys see the other cocktail recipes that we've got in here? No. There's some great cocktails and chocolate.
Cocktail party.
Yeah, who's going to have that one?
I'll have that.
So, but there's lots of lovely recipes, so please feel free to have a flick through there. And I'd love to come and do some other demonstrations with you guys because you've been lots of fun today.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You've been great too.
Thank you.